Here's how cycle syncing my workouts totally transform my body and my life. My name is Giulia. I'm a body confidence expert. I'm someone who used to struggle for eternity with her body, her relationship to exercise and food, and only led me into a really dark path. And once I finally learned how to do the internal work to heal these negative thoughts, my relationship to all those things, I began a life of freedom and confidence, and I've never looked back or been happier. So I love sharing tips and tools with you on how to do the same. So let's get into cycle syncing. Wow. I know people talked about this for a long time, and typically cycle syncing involves a lot around foods, and there's a lot of different things we can do to support our nutrition through the various phases of our cycle. But when I learned specifically how to tailor my workouts to cycle syncing to the different phases of my cycle, it changed the game for me. For context, I'm going to show you a before photo of what I used to look like before I was cycle syncing, and then I will show you after. So here is a photo of me before cycle syncing. And in fact, this is more specifically a photo of me several years ago when I was constantly doing high intensity interval training. I was doing high intensity interval training paired with intermittent fasting. I was not eating enough food and I was over exercising. And the result was not weight loss. My body actually put on weight. And so a lot of people wonder, well, how can that happen when you're in a caloric deficit? Well, the answer is this. Our hormones play a huge role in our metabolic health, how well we digest food, and that is why it isn't as simple as calories in and calories out. When we are putting a lot of stress on our body and causing our nervous system to go into a sympathetic stress state over and over again, what happens is cortisol, which is a stress hormone, is running through your body. Cortisol promotes weight gain and fat storage. And because I was so chronically stressed from this high intensity interval training at all phases of my cycle and under eating, my body put on considerable amounts of weight. And you can see this through my abdomen. It's very clear that there's a lot of inflammation, and it is very centered around the midsection. So I was very resistant to change any of my exercise workouts, routines, because I was so brainwashed by the fitness industry that said you have to do high intensity interval training to burn fat. And I'm going to show you now a photo of the result of me cycle syncing my workouts and frankly, actually cutting out high intensity interval training altogether. And I will show you the difference. I think you're going to be pretty surprised here. This is a photo of me after. So there's a very big difference, especially in the midsection, a lot leaner, a lot more muscle definition, very, very different looking body as a result of the cycle syncing. And I want to make this very clear that I don't feel that I'm any more worthy of a person because my body shape changed or my size changed. My body in the larger size had a lot of other physiological struggles that made it a problem for me. It wasn't just the fact that I gained weight that was a problem for me. It was the fact that I was also suffering from things like insomnia, which is really common with high cortisol. I had no appetite whatsoever. I was chronically full of anxiety and depression. My body had basically gone into what's known as a dorsal vagal shutdown. So I will show you that in a moment. So essentially, when we are not cycle syncing and we're putting a lot of stress on our body, we can enter into, this is a graph of our different nervous system states. We can cause our body to go into either the sympathetic activation or the dorsal vagal freeze shutdown. So that is actually what we call an emergency state. So that's when we've had so much prolonged stress and strain that our body goes into an emergency state. And when that happens, you can see insulin activity increases, our heart rate decreases, our blood pressure decreases, muscle tone decreases, all those different types of things, digestive ability, etc. And when we're in the sympathetic state, what increases is adrenaline, blood clotting, pupil size, we decrease insulin activity, digestion, all kinds of things. So those two states of your nervous system have a very big impact on your quality of life, your metabolic health, your sleep, your energy, like the list goes on and on and on of what those nervous system states affect. And because I wasn't actually paying attention to my cycle and where my body was at in any given part of the cycle and how much stress it had in any given part of the cycle, I was just treating it as like, we go all in at all times. I was putting my body into sympathetic activation over and over and over again, adrenaline flooding through my body. And then eventually I was in the freeze, dorsal vagal shutdown. So otherwise known as adrenal fatigue, which, you know, a lot of people don't recognize as an actual medical condition, but whether or not they actually recognize it, it is a real thing. So yeah, my nervous system was fried. And that is where, if we're not careful and we don't pay attention to our body and resting properly, we can actually get into these chronic states, and it has many side effects beyond weight gain. So back to my results. I focused on actually paying attention to my cycle, actually learning what might be the best type of exercise for different phases of my cycle. And as a result of being in adrenal fatigue, I actually had to really take my exercise down all the way to the bottom. Like, I couldn't do any type of high intensity interval training. I couldn't do any intense weightlifting. Anything that caused my body strain meant that my body was just going to inevitably release more cortisol, which was going to lead to more weight gain. So I had to basically start all over from ground zero. And I started doing exercise like walking and yoga and mat Pilates and very, very basic exercise. And that was really hard for me because I was a person who is chronically used to very intense forms of exercise. So it was very challenging for me to actually dial it all the way back. And to help my mental health and support my healing, I used a tool called emotional freedom techniques, otherwise known as tapping, to work through all those mental barriers and the fears that were coming up. And that in itself was absolutely life-changing and played a huge role in my body transformation and my mental emotional transformation. So I started healing my metabolism by regulating my food again and doing very light exercise. And once I had seen that my body had actually was showing signs of healing, like my sleep was back on track, my energy was back on track, I could feel my appetite again, all those cues coming back because I had healed my nervous system. Then I started really following my cycle as a way to really gauge, how can I, now that I'm in a state to increase my exercise, really support my body. So I'm going to show you this little notepad I took of cycle syncing, because this is really helpful. So in the beginning stages of inner spring, what we call inner spring, I mean, if we really start at the beginning, menstruation is really the very beginning. So we're going to go to the bottom. So when you menstruate, when you're bleeding, if you still have a menstrual cycle, which is usually around days 1 to 5, 6, depending, your energy levels are at your lowest. So the types of exercise you want to be doing here are light, low impact workouts, walking, stretching, yoga, mat Pilates, and rest. We actually can't even build muscle if we're not resting, because muscles are built during stress. We fatigue them, we break down the muscle fibers when we work out. And if we're constantly exercising, we're not giving our body time to rest, we are actually not able to build muscle. So I never knew that. In my menstrual cycle, in my menstrual phase now, I honestly don't really exercise. I will walk, or I will stretch, or at most I will do a little mat Pilates, nothing anaerobic, nothing high intensity. Because if I do, I know that my sleep will be affected. I know that my cortisol levels are already higher during this time because your body's working really hard to menstruate. So not a good time to be doing high intensity interval training during your menstruation phase. This is our inner winter. Now let's move into the follicular phase. This is the inner spring, days 6 to 11. This is when you have the most energy. This is when you can feel that within yourself. It's like a reawakening. This is where cardio is awesome. This is where, high intensity exercise or higher intensity weight training is great. So what is high intensity exercise? That might mean if you do things like F45, Orange Theory, Barry's Boot Camp, like those are very high intensity interval training classes. If you do high intensity exercise on your own, it's usually where you're pushing it for a short period of time, and then you have very little rest following that. So you're keeping your heart rate up and you're you're keeping your activity high and your rest low, and you do that over and over again. So maybe you're sprinting on a treadmill, or you're doing burpees, and then, like a Tabata is an example of a high intensity exercise. So my favorite type, I personally still don't do a lot of HIIT training, if any, because I don't like it. And because I did it for so much of my life, I have like an aversion to it now. And I don't like the way I feel when I do it. So it's really important when you're learning your exercise and what's effective for you is to listen to your body. Just because someone tells you to do a certain type of exercise doesn't mean you should do it, or you have to do it, or that you're going to see results doing it. The best results you're going to get are from the exercise that best supports you, that feels the best, that you look forward to doing, and that doesn't feel like punishment, in my opinion. Okay, so my favorite type of any type of exercise, honestly, lately, I use an app called Ladder. I think it's absolutely fantastic. They have different trainers that you can pick. I've heard the Nike training app is also great for that, but I just love the Ladder app. I think it's fabulous. I think their plan, if you want to rotate trainers every month and have as many options as possible, is like $58 a month, which is, I'll admit, on the more expensive side. But if you're used to paying for a personal trainer even once a week, which is probably $150 or $100 a week, it's very affordable. And if you're not spending a ton of money otherwise on fitness, I still think it's very affordable, all things considered. There are also a ton of free workouts trainers on YouTube, and fully take advantage of those. So during ovulation days, which is like your inner summer, days 12 to 16, you typically have a lot of energy, you feel fiery, this is where, again, you want to be doing things like weightlifting, circuit training, spin, power yoga, hot yoga, anything that requires more of you, because you have the energy. You're meeting yourself where you're at. So that's really for ovulation. If you're someone who during ovulation feels like you don't have a lot of energy because your body is actually working hard to ovulate and release those eggs, then listen to your body. Don't follow those types of workouts. Do whatever feels right for you. It's going to be just a few days, so you can tone it down and just really listen to your body, and that's going to have a high level of reward. Chances are that if you do a workout that's too much for you, you can tell in your sleep or your energy or your mood. And so those are all good indicators of, did this actually work for me? Do I feel good? Also, while you're doing it, if it feels like a slog and you're not enjoying it versus doing it and you feel like, wow, I feel so much energy, I can really push it, like you can tell what feels good and what doesn't. Okay, into the luteal days. So this is days 17 to 28. This is like our inner autumn. This is when our hormones and energy start to drop. So you want to think, again, if you're going to be doing more exercise, focus on things like Pilates, yoga, steady state cardio, low intensity levels. So you're not going to be wanting doing those sprint interval training exercises, and resistance training, which means lifting weights. Lifting weights can be higher intensity, but you can also do it in a lower intensity way where you're not raising your heart rate a whole lot. You're not doing huge lifts. Like, you are still pushing yourself. You're doing, a solid workout, but it's not like it was in the beginning of your cycle. So hopefully that's clear. So in the menstrual, we've already covered that. So now I'm going to talk about what my favorite workouts are to do that might be helpful for you. So when we're talking about mat Pilates and Pilates in general, I absolutely love Pilates. I think it's amazing for mobility. It's amazing for strength training, building lean muscle mass, lengthening your body. I used to think it was a joke and that I didn't even count it as a workout. And that's because I was the person who was pushing myself doing high intensity interval training 28 days out of every month, which is why I gained a lot of weight and my body burnt out. Now I really honor my body. I do a lot of Pilates. I absolutely love it. And one of my favorite people is actually on YouTube, Nicole Brown. She is awesome. I think she has a ton of really amazing quality videos, and she's absolutely fab. This is Move with Nicole. So she has so many different Pilates style workouts. You can filter them into lengths of time, or by style or level or focus. Amazing. I can't say enough good things about her. Fantastic. Ladder is the app that I use for my strength training. I do a lot of resistance training with weights because, again, the more you build lean muscle mass, the more you support your metabolic health, as well as support your body to actually be leaner. Of course, you can do cardio, but cardio itself isn't going to build muscle. So if you actually want to, a lot of people, when they say I want to lose weight, often are actually talking about just changing their body composition and wanting to look leaner. And I have always loved resistance training. When I gave up high intensity interval training, I just got into weight training and actually lifting weights, and I've never felt better. So on Ladder, this is an app. You can choose your team, so you can choose which trainer you want to use, which focus they work on, and every single day it's they give you a new workout, so you can choose your coach. Anyways, it's super, super, super awesome. They have teams. They just show you exactly what the workouts look like every single day. And you can see just like all the details within the app. So I highly, highly recommend it. The workouts are usually about, I think they have shorter coaches who do 30-minute workouts. The teams I'm on, they're usually 45 minutes, and they involve a stretch, they involve a warm-up, and it's like the perfect amount. And I absolutely love it. So during the phases right after I menstruate and ovulation, I'll do the higher intensity weight training programs on Ladder. I like Coach Samantha. She focuses on more weight training. And then I also calls herself Coco. Why is that? I don't know, because that's not actually her name. So let me find her name. But anyways, I love Courtney. That's why. So I go to Courtney's team and Samantha's, and I love their workouts. Robin has great ones for 30 minutes that are higher intensity. Anyways, you check it out if that interests you. And the other app that I love is called 28. And I wish someone taught me what this was earlier. 28 is an app that is actually for cycle syncing. So it's like a period tracker and fitness app, and it's amazing. It will tell you exactly what your nutrition should be during different phases of your cycle. It will actually has workouts within it, so you can work out with your cycle, not against it. See that? And yeah, just has everything that shows you what your cycle compass is. It's very, very cool. And it is not, parts of it are free, but I think it's $68 a year, and they focus on a lot of gentle exercise to balance your hormones and your energy levels. So highly recommend checking that out. It's called 28, and I wish someone taught me what this was earlier. 28 is an app that is actually for cycle syncing. So it's like a period tracker and fitness app, and it's amazing. It will tell you exactly what you're new. And I hope to see you again soon. And on my channel, I share all kinds of tips to have a loving, confident relationship with your body and yourself. And if you're someone who needs support with that, you're really struggling with it, you can book a complimentary call with me anytime. And I'm sending you so much love. I'll see you next week.